This paper looks at eye drops and their effectiveness at preventing COVID infection, because yes, the eyes are a route of COVID transmission. But before we dive into this paper, I just want to make a quick statement. I don't think that eye drops are the way to go for preventing COVID infection when we have something that lasts much longer, and that is eyeglasses, or alternatively, safety glasses with side shields. These are going to have consistent long-term protection, so I think these are really going to be the go-to. For instance, a couple of months ago, I was at the grocery store and someone was coughing as I was passing them. I didn't think anything of it, but when I got home, I noticed that I had all these little droplet particles in my glasses, meaning that if my glasses weren't there, those would have contacted my eyes, possibly leading to infection through the ocular route. And then when something like this happens, all you have to do is take a little liquid hand soap that's unscented and wipe it over the lenses and then put it under water and wash it off. So I really think this is the way to go, but I want you to know your options, so here we go. In this paper, they studied the antiviral activity of already marketed eye drops against COVID. The 4 eye drops they looked at were Iodem, Ozodrop, Septavis, and Dropset. And the results indicate that 3 out of the 4 ophthalmic solutions, the eye drops, showed a considerable dose-dependent inhibition of viral replication. Essentially, they prevented COVID from grabbing a toehold on your eyes and then causing infection to occur. Lipozanide, or Ozodrop, would likely be considered a nitric oxide-based eye drop because of the hydroxypropyl methylcellulose, the HPMC. Next we have Dropsept, whose active ingredient is likely the chlorhexidine digluconate. Then there's Septavis, which doesn't have anything outright obvious that would have an activation against COVID. And then as a little spoiler, since I highlighted it in red, there's nothing that actually inactivates COVID in here, so that's going to be the problem one. The one that was listed as not working. And then we have Iodem, which has PVPI, the providone iodine, at 0.6%, so that's going to be the active ingredient against the COVID. In this study, they had positive and negative control cell cultures, where they either added the eye drops or didn't add the eye drops. And the antiviral potential of the eye drops by inoculating with those eye drops over a 24 and 48 hour post-infection period was evaluated using real-time PCR. In terms of cytotoxicity or cell viability, the question of will it damage the surrounding cells that it's in contact with, for each of the 3, Iodem, Ozodrop, and Dropset, in the short term there was no cell viability issues, so up to 30 minutes it didn't damage any of the cells, but once they started testing out to 1 hour and 2 hour, there was some damage of the surrounding cells. However, for Septavis, the one that doesn't work against COVID, it showed good cell viability up to the 2-hour time point, meaning it didn't damage the surrounding cells. And then they tested dose-dependent viral inhibition, so they increased the concentration from 12.5 microliters to 100 microliters. And you want very high viral inhibition of COVID, meaning that it's killing the COVID. So for instance, which one do you think is Septavis? Yep, it's that one, which didn't really do much. So if you're trying to pick an eye drop to prevent against COVID, that's the one you're not going to want to go with. But in order, we have Iodem, we have Ozodrop, and then we have Dropset. And we see for each of them that increasing the concentration increases the viral inhibition of COVID, which makes sense. The more drug that you have interacting with COVID, the more that it's going to inhibit the COVID if it actually does that. And we also see a time-dependent manner, so after the treatment, we're seeing that it's increasing viral inhibition over time for each of them. So at least it has a good up to 2 hours viral inhibition using these eye drops, which could be something that's very beneficial maybe at the optometrist. And then to put the dose in perspective, 2 eye drops would be effective against COVID, so doing 2 eye drops in each eye. And if you're going to select one of these, in particular, Iodem or Ozodrop exhibited high antiviral activity with about a 98% inhibition of COVID. And remember, Ozodrop is going to be that nitric oxide eye drop, and Iodem is going to be that PVPI eye drop. And then both of those are definitely going to sting. And interestingly, the authors found that the eye drops didn't interfere with the viral replication phase of the COVID, but the eye drops themselves actually act upstream, meaning that they prevent the virus from entering the cell and thus block the virus from directly contacting the cell, meaning that these eye drops would likely be good as a preventative measure, but also meaning that they likely wouldn't be effective if you had already been infected with COVID already.